Hello, everybody. I'm JVL from the Bulwark, and I am here with, I don't want to say old friend, but certainly a longtime friend of the Bulwark, Olivia of Troye, which is your Substack handle and honestly should be your real name. Can you legally change it to that? Because it's so perfect.
I
Uh,
should. It's been a long time nickname of my friends for a very long time, which is
it's
pretty funny in these times, especially.
Yeah, it's perfect. Her Substack publication, though, is Olivia Troy Unfiltered. And if you are here and you're not subscribed yet and signed up for her, there should be a little button right next to where you're watching this feed from. And so hit it up, give her a follow. It's great. Olivia is, for anybody who doesn't remember or was living under a rock, is one of the heroes of the first Trump administration because she's one of like seven people who walked away. And one of the things we're going to talk about later, so I'll just put a pin in this, is why it seems like the only people, not the only people, because there are some good ones like Adam Kinzinger, but why it is that most of the people to show actual bravery in the face of all this turn out to be women. Put a pin in that. We'll talk about that at the end. But I want to start, Olivia, by talking about the Jeffrey Goldberg Atlantic piece in national security, because you worked in national security, in the executive branch, in government. And so I would just like to put a quarter in the machine with you and let you talk about what it is like to have a real grown up job in the federal government and how you are instructed to carry out your duties in terms of the handling of classified information, the preservation of records, and the way in which you communicate and do official business. So can you just like explain to people in the audience, for anybody who hasn't
Yes.
worked in the federal government, how this works? Like just on a day, like what is your day like? You know, you show up to work on the first day, they take you to teach you how to be a government employee. Talk to them.
Yeah, I mean, you show up, you sign all this paperwork, and then you go through a series of briefings about all the rules that happen in the federal government, about how you communicate things in the federal government, how you have a duty to keep your files straight in the federal government, and also how you conduct official business, which is done on official email and official communication channels, especially, I will say, when you are one in the national security community, first and foremost, and two, also, especially if you are working in the White House, in the executive branch, which takes on a whole new level, right? Because there's the Presidential Records Act that I think a lot of people forget about, where you are supposed to keep everything on file. It's for historical purposes, it's also for transparency and accountability. Whether it's my files in my office, whether it's paper trail. Look, I'm going to be honest. They wouldn't even allow you to print something out from unclassified channels at home. It didn't matter. I remember this because full transparency. I got dinged once on it when I was working for Mike Pence. I was late to get to Air Force Two. I was rushing, and it was an unclassified email. And I was just trying to actually print out my own notes really fast because I was late to get to the plane and I was not going to make it to the White House. And I printed it out once and I got a notification immediately, almost immediately, just so you know, from IT. And then a phone call and said, Miss Troy, did you print something out? Did you add something somehow to connect it? And I was like, oh. And I was like, I did. I can show you the file. I mean, I literally, my blood pressure went up because I was like, it's unclassified, I promise. It's just like, it was just like I went out of my way. But I only say that as an example because that would be the traditional normal reaction of how you communicate and how you react to things in government. I'll also say this, JB. I have not only did I work for Mike Pence, obviously, and I was his Homeland Security advisor. For the record, to his credit, he knows how to handle classified information. I was sitting there wondering what would Mike Pence do in that signal chat. And I'm pretty sure I would have gotten a phone call and he probably would have asked me what the hell was going on. He probably wouldn't say hell. He'd say, Libby, what is
What
this?
the HE double hockey sticks?
Yes,
Right.
exactly. Um, but I also worked for several heads of intelligence agencies. I worked for the director of national counterterrorism. So when you see that name in the group chat, Joe Kent, I worked for a former head of that agency. And I can tell you for a fact that we would not have been coordinating any type of intelligence operation, any type of policy, much less a tactical live military operation that was going to go live within a short period in a group chat. It doesn't matter if it's encrypted, a signal, it's an unclassified platform. And also, that's why you have staff. And to me, honestly, when I read this article, not only did it give me anxiety for the reporter, but I thought about it and I said, look, I've been a staffer in those roles, by the way. I used to have to get up sometimes at 5 o'clock in the morning and then go into the office and get whatever it was,
Right.
and then actually travel to the director's house to either brief them or get on a secure line if I didn't have a classified phone at home, which I didn't have until I worked in the White House, and have these conversations and coordinate them. So it also, to me, I just thought, wow, what laziness. What laziness by the National Security Advisor, who knows better, right? Mike Waltz, I know him. I've known him for years. He worked in the Pentagon. He also had a similar role to mine under Vice President Dick Cheney. He knows better. He knows how to do this policy coordination, intelligence coordination. And so when I read it, I couldn't get over the shock because I just thought this is just so lazy as well. Not only is it
So,
dangerous, it's just they don't care.
so two things I'm going to underline. First of all, that what you're talking about are not just guidelines and best practices. They
Right.
are that, but like the preservation. So there are really two things here. There is the security aspect, and there is the records aspect, the record keeping aspect, right? And they're separate. And there are laws which govern the security, and those are fairly arcane, and you can get tied up. And there are lots of distinctions because there are levels of classifications. But the records bucket is pretty clear, and because it is governed by an actual statute with actual criminal penalties attached to it. It's called the Presidential Records Act, and all of it is very clear about using external electronic communications. If you do that, then you have to be copying an official channel for the record. It is not. There seems to be no evidence that any of this was done, and it's very broad. It's if you're conducting official business, and so you will occasionally hear lawyers who will say, well, if what you're doing is saying, I'll meet you outside the skiff in 15 minutes, that might not be official
Yeah.
business. You could use Signal or
A little
WhatsApp or
different.
a
Yeah.
text, right? So, but like having a policy discussion, which is what they were doing in the outset, like should we do this or should we not? That all falls under the official. That's actual official executive branch business, and they're ducking that. Going back to the security bucket, though, you
Yeah.
wrote about this yesterday in over at Olivia Troye Unfiltered. Ding, ding, ding. Go sign up, guys. And you point out for the laziness here, these guys at taxpayer extent, like, when you are a minion the way you were as a young pup, then you've got to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and drive to the office.
Yes.
But at the senior levels, these guys are given all of the secure tools, right? I mean,
That's what was so shocking. You
right. So
have
can you
it. You
talk a
should
little? Can
have
you
it at
tell
home.
people a little bit? Yeah, tell people a little bit so at the senior levels, what do setups traditionally look like? Because you've been around this, you've seen it. Like it isn't the fact that they would have had to get up at if you're the vice president, you have to get
No,
up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get there to have a conversation with somebody.
no,
So can you
all of
tell
these
people what they've
people.
got?
Yeah. I mean, that was what was so striking to me at that level, especially the people that were in that group. Immediately, their homes are outfitted they actually will have classified setups. They'll actually be designated in their home. They'll have a way to communicate. They'll have like secure phones to use that they can use. In many cases, they can have secure computers depending on their setup. But I mean, the reality is that if they wanted to conduct this in the way that it should be conducted, it's very easy. They have it in their own house. They're not having to go anywhere, right? Like what I described with me when I worked for Don Rumsfeld, I was a young staffer. I'm carrying, a lock bag. I'm going to get documents and I'm going to his house, to his facility. I mean, it's totally different. When you're at a certain level, you have that. I mean, I had the classified phone at home when I was in the White House because I was the one of the lead people for Mike Pence to respond. I was the person that the sit room was calling in the middle of the night And sometimes they would call that phone depending on what was happening. And so, or to confirm that something had gone on. And so that to me was what really also stood out, JD, was just the fact that like you have all the means. We spend so much money every time a new cabinet official gets installed and in place. Like all of that, all of the money that is spent in it to have this set up in your home. And you're sitting there. And by the way, and I don't know if how many people watched the threat briefing this morning, but like Tulsi Gabbard wouldn't even say whether she was on her personal phone or her work phone. I mean, think about that. So, what are you using? Then, which phone are you communicating on? Because I find that fascinating. Because I can tell you, like, I had three phones when I was in the White House. I had a personal phone where I was texting my family, and I had a DHS phone because I was detailed from the Department of Homeland Security. And by the way, I had to keep those systems separate because that's how strict the records are on it,
Right. Thank
right?
you. Yes. Yep.
And then I had a White House phone. And so I was literally, when I walk around, it was a joke with my friends because they'd be like, here, Olivia, I mean, you can never disappear because you've got many ways to contact me. And that is it. But for my official comms, that was it. And my email, by the way, wasn't my government emails were kept separately. Again, records for DHS and records for the White
Right.
House. And so
Right.
that's why I had to walk around with two phones for the government and then my own. So I just found that striking because she was like, she wouldn't answer the question. I mean, that's a simple question. You're conducting work business. It should be your work phone, Tulsi. And the fact that you're the DNI and you can't acknowledge that is problematic within itself.
And
Yeah.
when you're the DNI also, like I understand. Again, if you are a minion, like I mean, I don't know. You
Yes.
and I remember that. You remember before we iPhones, the Blackberries, and people in DC would have to carry like three different Blackberries
Yeah.
with them. It's right. Um, like Tulsi doesn't even have to do that herself. She has people to carry these things for her. It
Yes.
isn't even like, oh, it's such a hassle. Like that's for normal working people, not at the principal level.
Yeah.
Um,
Just a
so
tremendous lack of judgment, though, by the
yeah.
National Security Advisor, also. I mean, I was basically, when I was watching it play out and when I was reading the article and I read it, I went back. I've said this like, I went back and reread it a couple of times, JB, because I actually couldn't believe what I was reading. I was like, no, no, no,
Right.
no, no.
Yeah.
Am I reading fiction here? No, this is actually real. And then it became very real to me because full credit to Jeffrey Goldberg. Like my heart, like when I read and he was like, I'm not going to publish the name of the intelligence officer. Credit
Yeah.
to
Well,
him
Jeff's
for
the
his
best.
integrity of not doing that. Right. Because, and that is when I was like, no, no, he's now using his own judgment about protecting lives more so than the leaders in this chat.
So I mean, Jeff is great. Tim had him on the Bulwark
Yeah.
podcast this morning, and I mean, one of the things he said, I've heard it because it's not like public yet. I don't think it'll be out like within minutes. But I'll give you guys a little preview. One of the things Jeff said was that like he's been a national security reporter for 30 years.
Yeah.
He's highly interested in this stuff. But he is not interested in the things that he was seeing, right? Like as a national
Yeah.
security reporter, you don't want to see operational details of like something that's happening in 2 hours because that suggests to you that something dangerous is happening and that American lives are unnecessarily at risk. What you want if you're a national security reporter is you want to know how decisions are being made after action. You want to be able to get at clear records of what happened, right? Like this is the kind of information that
Yeah.
no national security reporter wants to get. Like, because when they see it, they know it means something bad. Um,
Yeah.
can we
And
talk a
kudos
little
to
bit
him
about?
for protecting it. Right.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
well, Jeff's
he's
Jeff is so
using
great.
he's using judgment that apparently Mike Waltz, the national security advisor, didn't have because he's the one that chose to convene this group. Who,
Yeah,
by the way, I say that with no pleasure because I know Mike Walt and I've known his wife a long time who served in the military or both deployed in Iraq. I know both of them. His wife knows better. She served in the Trump administration with me. I mean, this is why all of this is just so beyond ridiculous. And I just wonder what happened. Did power just get to their heads and they just forgot how to actually behave like responsible adults? I don't understand what's happening here.
well, and now we get to the actual security part of
Yeah.
it. Like, we've talked about the law, we've talked about I mean, last week, the Pentagon put out an alert about a vulnerability discovered in Signal. I don't know if you saw this.
Yes.
This is the problem with using commercial stuff, is that it isn't real. I mean, it's secure-ish, right? It's more
Right.
secure than using Twitter DMs. Right. If
Yes.
you use Twitter DMs, then everybody at Twitter, I mean not everybody at Twitter, but Elon and people at Twitter have God's eye view and they can look through your DMs. That's part of the TOS. It's right there. If you are using WhatsApp, supposedly that is end-to-end encrypted. Signal is definitely end-to-end encrypted, but they still have vulnerabilities. And your phone, the device it's on, right? There are device
Yes.
level vulnerabilities. And then, forget just like device level vulnerabilities. Anybody who gets your device can get into it, right? I mean, your kid,
Yes.
your 6-year-old picks up the device and they can just like, I'm sure you've had this happen, right? Not with secure stuff, but like, your kid picks up the phone and goes through. All of a sudden, they're like erasing contacts because they're like, oh, look, if I move my finger left and right, it goes red. I mean, the defense that they've trotted out today seems to be everything turned out fine,
This
and
time.
this time, and nothing was classified, right? There were no, like, they're using weird terms for it.
Yes.
And Jeff has said, look, I don't know, like, there are lists of targets and discussions of what ordnance are going to be
There's
used
yeah.
and the timing and locations of strikes. Like, you tell me what that is, right?
Yeah. There's no way. There's just no way. I mean, in what world would that be? Okay, so would they have it openly published on when they were going to do it? Because that's really what could have happened here, right? It could have
Yeah.
gone on the wrong hands. They could have a foreign adversary or the target of the adversary, another person, another enemy, could have stepped in. They could have shot down the planes. They could have killed like American soldiers. They could have attacked our bases. They could have preempted a strike, or they could have like struck somewhere else preemptively once they had the information. I mean, there's so
Or
many
just
different
move the
ways.
targets, right? They could have
Yes.
moved the targets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the simplest thing is, right, this gets out, then they hear, oh crap, we got 2 hours to move, bad guy X, Y, and Z to another place,
And the other part of
right?
it is I operate by the rule of I just assume that if yes, Signal's great, it's encrypted. You want to hope that it's better than just normal, like you said, Twitter, regular text, whatever. I operate by de facto mode that odds are someone can probably access it and read it. You should just automatically do that. I assume it. So I guess so when I thought about that, I was thinking there's no way that this was the first time that they did it. It's just the only time they got caught.
Well,
What other things are they doing?
yes. So this
Right.
is the bigger question, right? And I mean, look, this isn't science or anything, but looking at the ease with which these people were conversing about these matters over this, a military strike, which is about as like the most important thing you could be talking
Yes.
about, it struck me that everything else must be in this government must be being done through unofficial channels as well. Right. The
Yeah.
Doge
And
stuff must not be happening over, the official channels which keep records, right? None of everything is being done off the books. And this is so much like Trump 1. I don't know if you remember in Trump 1, there was in the Mueller report, there's a scene like it's a novel, where Trump
kind of
dispatches
feels that
Corey.
way, JV. So it
Yeah,
does feel
yeah.
like
He
we're in a bad.
dispatches Corey Lewandowski to give a message to, I think it was Jeff Sessions at the time.
Mhm.
And this is because Trump used the word like a mob, but he doesn't want to call Sessions himself. He doesn't want to put it in writing. So Corey Lewandowski is at that point a private citizen. He is summoned to the White House. Trump tells him verbally a
Yes,
message
remember
and
this.
says, "You go to Sessions." I think it was Sessions. Maybe I'm misremembering it with somebody else. But you go over to DOJ and give him this message from me, because this is how mom, right? This is, remember The Wire? Like, you don't take notes at a criminal
Yes.
fucking conspiracy, right?
Yeah.
Trump knows you don't put stuff in writing. And so the fact that they're using Signal and not Zoom, I guess, is their way of, I don't know.
I don't know who calls. It's basically like calling a PC like a principals committee, right? I think Jeffrey Goldberg refers to that. And I'm just sitting there
Yeah.
thinking, like, first of all, like I worked under John Bolton. I've worked with John Bolton in the past during the Bush administration as well. Like, I can't imagine any period of time. And actually, I've been to the National Security Council during the Obama years as well. Like a national security advisor convening a high level meeting. Also, by the way, asking in the signal chat, who's your rep for this operation? Like adding it. And then that's how the intel person gets. I mean, the amateur hour of this. No, I'm serious. Like, I don't know what else to call it. Like, that's how you're coordinating policy. And so I guess my question is like, is that how they're coordinating Ukraine? Because Putin must be enjoying that. Is that how they're coordinating Israel and Gaza discussions ongoing? Were they on there chatting about how they're going to send, the Venezuelan gang members and all that to El Salvador? Like, what all is happening on Signal? Because seriously, that they've got it going on. And then I'm thinking, like, our European allies, what must they be thinking? Right? Because they're watching the conversation about them on there and they're like, well, what all is going on Signal about us?
Well, I mean, so here's one thing. It's actually one of the things I want to talk to you about. So we might as well do it now. I mean, it is clear to me that our European allies, who already must have assumed that any intel they pass on to us probably winds up with Putin,
Yes.
now have to worry about not only malicious leaks of intel they share with us, but also like just idiot leaks of intel they share, right? And so, even if they're not assuming that there's malicious intent on the part of American officials, and so that has to reduce the amount of intel and the quality of intel they're going to be willing to share, right? Because they're not going to share product that they assume is going to be compromised. And
Right.
the less intel we get from our allies, the less safe we all are. Like this is like
Yeah.
I don't
And
know,
that's
like
what the
America
bottom line.
first, right?
Right. I mean, it's just sort of like, by the way, it impacts all of us. It does impact. I mean, I know people were maybe living in the bubble. I obviously care a lot about national security, but for the average American, it actually does impact your lives because every time that something like this happens and another incident like this like takes place, it's just eroding at the security of our nation and which impacts the homeland, right? We may be disconnected, we may think, oh, it's foreign, it's overseas or whatever, but all of that eventually impacts the security here domestically, and that's what people sort of forget. And I mean, quite honestly, and I wrote about this in my Substack, like for me, it was so personal because I was just like, I can't even imagine what it's like. Like, think, put yourself in like a parent's shoes or a sibling's shoes or son or daughter, and your person's going off. They're going on a deployment, or you have an intel officer that's going overseas. The last thing you expect is for operations and the sensitive secrets and classified information that are happening that your son or daughter may be connected to or working on the ground while they're overseas to be openly discussed on text messages in a group chat like it's gossip between cabinet members who potentially could
Nuts.
expose your name. I just like, how do you explain that to a parent then if their son or daughter gets killed? Or I mean, I just don't, I like.
And just, I mean,
And
the
so
ripples
it's
on
just,
this
I
are
mean, it's
so
reckless.
wide. So, I mean, just
It's
think about
reckless.
recruitment. Like, how
Yeah.
how are we going to recruit like the best people to come and join in the CIA and help gather intel in the future, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like it's not just when you endanger people like this. It's not just like you don't just put the current operation at risk. You don't just put future operations at risk because maybe you're not getting the best intel from your allies because they don't feel like they can share it. But you put like the whole future of the intel establishment at risk because anybody who's smart enough to be like a good intel officer is going to look at this and say, I'm going to put my ass hanging out in the air
Yeah.
for these people. Are you
Yeah.
kidding? They'll
These are
get
the
me
people
killed.
in charge.
Right.
Yeah.
And
And
I,
also, you've got a whole bunch of intelligence officers out there now and a whole national security enterprise and military enterprise who are watching this and they're like, okay, so if they don't care, why should I care? Like, about this
yeah.
information? Why should I protect it? They clearly
So
don't care.
if, if you were a betting woman, are you a betting woman? Are you a degenerate gambler like our friend Sarah Longwell? Because Sarah loves to gamble.
I'm not. I don't gamble, but I do come from a Vegas family. I come from a
What
Nevada family.
What would you say the odds are that Pam Bondi and Cash Patel launch a good faith investigation on all this stuff?
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Right? No, it's literally zero, right? Like
No. I mean,
that
I
to
would be
me is the
surprised if they've
deepest
even wiped the
corruption.
phones. Have they actually even wiped the phones yet? I would
Oh yeah,
love to
that's a
know
great
that. Did
question.
they follow a security protocol? Did everyone's phones get swept? Did they get wiped? But then on the other hand, well, they probably shouldn't be wiped, but maybe they did because they don't want everybody to know that there's 20, 30, 50 signal chat channels labeled Houthi group, Venezuela group. I mean, we're doing government policy and coordination on Signal now. So, I mean, how many? I mean, where's the paperwork for that? Which, by the way, is actually real. Back to that. There's a whole staff that actually has to write the summaries of meetings and notes on things when things like this are happening in real time. So I'm just, it's just wild. I don't, so many layers.
So what are Republicans going to do? I mean, and I don't mean congressional
Well,
Republicans, because the
suddenly
congressional
this isn't
Republicans are going to do what
classified.
they right. But I mean, like I don't know. Is is W ever going to say anything about any of this, or is he just like, dude, peace out? I'm doing paintings. I'm on my watercolors, bitches. I'm going to clear some brush off the ranch. You all figure
Yeah.
this out. Is that? I mean, is anybody can Mitt Romney is still around, or does Mitt feel like, look, I did what I could. Nobody listened to me.
I
Is
sort of feel
anybody
like
going
that's where
to?
people are.
Yeah.
I think that's where it is, right? I don't see it any other way. I mean, I don't see anybody else. I mean, you would think that this would be another egregious thing that's happened, a pretty serious one, that we don't want to repeat again. But I don't think that anyone's going to be sticking their necks out. I mean, it's in many ways, it's just another thing that's happened in Trump presidency 2.0. Right? I mean, that's the
Yeah.
problem with all of this. It's a pretty egregious one. But then on the other hand, like, I mean, I don't know. This is, there's so many things that have happened this week. Like Christine Nome in the cabinet meeting said that she's going to eliminate FEMA. That's barely made a blip on the headlines. That's a pretty big freaking deal to be sitting there at a cabinet meeting and the head of DHS just said, "Oh yeah, we're going to eliminate FEMA. Don't worry about it. Natural disasters, states, you're on your own." That's a pretty big deal, but it's barely even making the headlines because this is a pretty big deal too. So I don't know. When I look at Republicans, I think at this point they're like, what good is it going to do? And it's just unfortunate because it's just the more we become complacent with this and more silent, that's what they want, right? Because then it's not a big deal when they do things like this. We just move on.
So, yeah, another person who failed. I don't know if you saw Condi Rice posed for a picture with Christy Nome this week. Just visiting Christy Nome, Condi Rice, former grown up, just being like, "Hey,
This is
everybody."
water. Unfortunately, this is water.
Yeah, if only. So, I mean, let's get back then. We'll close out here with my opening question. Why is it, do you think, that I don't know? It's like you, Liz Cheney, Cassidy Hutchinson, Fiona Hill. I mean, there's so many data points at this point now that it's kind of striking how I'll just like make a gendered difference. Like the women seem much more willing to stand up and be brave than men in the Republican sphere have been. And again, not everybody, not every. I actually think Mike Pence. I've written about this like 15 times. Mike Pence, I think, conducted himself very honorably. Adam Kinzinger, absolute legend. Love that guy. Um, like it's not like there are no examples, but there's enough that you can start to be like, okay, I'm sorry, there's a clear pattern. Why do the women have all the balls here? Um, do you have any theories on this? Have you ever spent like any time, like, over a glass of wine with the other like dissident Republican Valkyries? You know,
you know, I we do talk about it, and we have
what
still
is it?
not cracked the code on it, on what is it about that, other than, I mean, I just don't know. I part of it is like maybe we've all had to like push boundaries to get to where we are and overcome things along the way that maybe we're just built to kind of take a stand and keep swinging and just keep going. Maybe that's it. I mean, I was certainly raised by strong women. I have that sign that says women who raise strong women. So I think of my mom in that way. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just we've had to just really continue to overcome barriers along the way to get to where we are. And maybe we're just built to take greater stands in the moment. But we don't know. I've had this conversation
Yeah.
with my friends. I've been asked this question. Um, but I wish that it weren't this way. I think it'd be
Yeah.
better if we were stronger in bigger numbers. But maybe it's just that we're just fighters. I mean, I spent most of my career in a mostly male dominated field. It's better now. There are more women in the intelligence community, and I certainly am a big supporter of that. But for the most part, it was it was men in these rooms around me, especially in the era where I was just starting off in my career. And so I wonder if that played a role in it. But or maybe it's just, morals instilled, parenting, right? Wrong is wrong, right is right. Or if you're gonna believe in it, then you have to actually stand up for it and actually like walk the talk. But I don't know. The mystery remains, right? I mean, so I
Yeah.
wonder if that's part of it.
I don't know. We had a piece, or maybe it wasn't us. It was. I'm pretty sure Alan Elrod wrote this piece. I don't know if he wrote it for us or for the Unpopulist. I'm forgetting. I just remember it was a great piece talking about how inextricably linked sexual violence and totalitarianism are, and that like rape is part of like the authoritarian project. And so it's like it's not an accident that you get people like Pete Hegseth and the Andrew Tates of the world lining
Hmm.
up with this, because that's just like a thing that happens. And I don't know, like maybe some gender studies, 30 years from now, some gender studies major will write a fascinating dissertation on why it was that like the women were more willing to resist authoritarianism and the men were more interested in doing it.
There is a
I don't know.
pattern across the board, and I'll say this,
Yeah.
and not to get dark on you, but I wrote a thesis on this when I was in grad school, doing a whole thesis at the National Defense University on women, and my thesis was on terrorism. And there is a book; it's out of print now, but it was called "Shoot the Women First," and I
Oh,
wrote about
fascinating.
yes, and I wrote about the female terrorist. And throughout history and cases of women terrorists, they're very committed and they are less likely to back down from going through with the operation.
Oh,
And I
wow.
found that a very interesting trend. Now, I mean, I'm obviously not promoting women in terrorism, but what I'm saying here is there is certainly a trait of once they believed in the cause, they were committed and they were fighters, they were going in and um, they were less likely to cower or back down from whatever action they were going to take. And I spent a lot of time studying that, and I found it so interesting. It's a fascinating book. I think it's hard to get, but if you can look it up and find it, because it's super interesting. They go through various cases of women terrorists throughout history and what they've done, and they kind of analyze like their mentality of it, their thinking behind it. And I don't know. There you
That's
go.
fascinating. Yeah. No,
Sense.
it could be something about commitment and like levels of commitment, which again is like a value neutral thing. Like, commitment
Yeah.
is great in a good cause, it's terrible in a bad cause. And
Yeah.
just
I mean,
like
there's studies that
bravery
say
is
women
yeah.
have a higher threshold for pain. I don't know if that's true or not, but there's some studies about that. So what is it? I don't know.
It must be true. I am 100% positive that that's true. I yeah. I'm sorry, just my lived experience. 100% believe that. Uh,
Yeah.
all right,
My husband would
Olivia.
say the same thing. He would say I have a
Yeah,
very high threshold. I broke my foot once, like the bone was sticking out of the foot. Yikes. And I was like, what?
yeah. I was I was at this kid ninja tournament. I don't know if you know this, but American Ninja Warrior. You've seen American Ninja Warrior,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That
Familiar.
is that is a thing that children do now. The way that they would do travel soccer or something else, like they join a like Ninja Warrior travel team and they learn
Wait,
how to do all
what?
this insane stuff. Oh yeah,
I
it's a
totally missed
thing.
my era, JV. That was my go-to costume when I was little.
It's a
I was a
thing.
ninja all the time. I could have been doing this.
So I was at
Right.
a district finals competition for 11-year-old Ninja Warriors, and they were doing some of the
It's
most
amazing.
insane shit you have ever seen. I mean, it is not like Pee Wee soccer where like all the 6-year-olds go around the same ball. These kids are like doing flips and going up the salmon ladder and the whole 9 yards.
It's
And
pretty impressive.
this girl, uh, there was like an obstacle where you're hanging from a metal bar and you have to like kip up to move the metal bar to a ratchet above it. and the bar fell. She fell like, 10 feet flat on her back. Now, there's pads, but still, like she went flat on her back,
Yeah.
and the bar came down
Ouch.
and like hit her in the head. And I'm looking at this girl and I'm thinking, uh, A, I hope she's not dead. And B, I would just be crying like a bitch. And I don't mean 11-year-old me. I mean like, middle-aged
Yes.
me. This girl's on the ground for like 10 seconds. Then she popped up and she's like, yeah, let's move on to the next obstacle. Like, yeah, women are tougher.
Love that.
All right, everybody, go to Olivia of Troye Unfiltered. It's just Olivia Troye Unfiltered, but
Yeah.
Substack app is your friend.
I'll
You should be
update
able to
it.
click and get to it.
I'll go with it
Um,
officially.
Olivia, thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your experiences, and thank you for just being brave and being you. You
Thank you.
truly are like an inspirational figure and a good egg. So, everybody, we'll be
And
back
thanks for
next
caring.
week with another one of these. Olivia, thanks. Give her a follow, everybody.
Bye, you all.
Bye.
Hey, YouTube fam, if you want to support the Bulwark, the best way to do it is by becoming a YouTube Bulwark Plus member. The Bulwark is truly independent. We have no corporate overlords. We're not settling any dumb lawsuits with Trump. By joining, you help support our work, and you can get a bunch of perks right here on this platform. Ad-free content, bonus videos, live streams, and some emojis of me, which I guess some people want. So come join, come hang out, become a Bulwark YouTube Plus member, and I'll be seeing you in the comments. So behave.